Imagine working for years to build your own solar grid, only to find out the neighborhood HOA cop is secretly plugging in his Tesla every night, draining your power like it's his personal gas station. He thought he was untouchable. But when I caught him red-handed, I didn't call him out. I turned the voltage to maximum and watched the sparks fly. By the end, his car was fried, the HOA president was exposed, and the whole board collapsed. Here's how one stolen charge turned into the end of an HOA. You ever had someone steal from you right under your nose? Not your wallet, not food off your plate, but something you never thought you'd have to guard: electricity. That's where my nightmare started. I'd invested years into making my property self-sufficient. Every panel on the roof, every wire I soldered into the system, every deep cycle battery humming in the garage, it was mine, my pride, my power, and I knew it down to the last watt. So when the numbers didn't add up, when my backup drained faster than it should and my bills crept upward instead of down, I knew something was wrong. At first, I blamed the system itself. Maybe a weak inverter, maybe one of the lithium packs had finally gone bad. But the more I checked, the more I realized the math didn't lie. My energy wasn't vanishing into thin air. It was being siphoned. Someone was leeching off my hard work, tapping into my system like it was their personal outlet. That realization made my skin crawl. I didn't just feel cheated. I felt invaded. My home, my fortress of independence, was suddenly vulnerable. I started watching. I stayed up late, blinds cracked, mug of coffee in my hand. For days, nothing happened. Just the quiet hum of the night and the occasional car rolling down the street. Then, one night, just past midnight, I saw movement. A figure crept across the edge of my driveway, dragging something thick and orange behind him. When he stepped into the light, my blood boiled. It wasn't just some random thief or desperate neighbor. It was him, the self-proclaimed HOA cop, a guy who strutted around the neighborhood in a knockoff tactical vest with HOA enforcement stitched across the chest like he was some kind of sheriff. He'd bark at kids for riding bikes too fast, harass homeowners about their lawn height, and slap fake citations on doors for things no one ever voted on. And now here he was, bold as brass, plugging his luxury Tesla into my solar grid. I sat frozen, watching as he leaned back against his shiny black car, sunglasses perched on his head, even though it was well past midnight. My hard-earned power flowed through that cable, straight into his battery, while he smirked like he owned the place. He didn't even try to hide it. That told me everything I needed to know. He didn't see this as theft. He saw it as entitlement. In his mind, being the so-called HOA cop gave him a right to treat my property like a community resource. The next morning, I confronted him. Broad daylight, in front of half the neighborhood, he was strutting down the street in that ridiculous vest, clipboard tucked under one arm. I marched right up and said, "I saw you charging your Tesla off my grid last night. You're stealing power." He didn't flinch, didn't apologize. Instead, he smirked, tilted his sunglasses, and said, "Neighborhood ordinance allows for emergency charging. I'm authorized to draw from community resources." I almost laughed in his face. My solar grid wasn't community anything. It was mine. I bought it, wired it, maintained it. There wasn't a single law or ordinance in the book that gave him the right to take so much as a watt. But there he was, acting like his fake badge granted him free electricity. And it didn't stop with one night. No, he came back. Again and again, times sneaky, parking his Tesla just far enough down the drive to think I wouldn't notice. Other times bold, standing there in plain sight, arms crossed, daring me to say something. Every morning my system logs showed the drain. And every morning, my anger grew hotter. This wasn't just about electricity anymore. This was about principle. About someone abusing fake authority to take what wasn't his. And I knew I couldn't let it slide much longer. That week, I didn't sleep much. Every night I found myself pacing the floor, blinds barely cracked, waiting for the inevitable glow of headlights sweeping across my driveway. And sure enough, like clockwork, the HOA cop returned. He acted like my property was his personal pit stop. The smugness in his stride, the way he casually leaned on the hood while my system bled kilowatts, it all made my jaw clench tighter by the night. But confrontation wasn't working. The man had no shame, no fear. He hid behind his fake vest, his fake badge, and his best friend Karen, the HOA president. I knew that if I kept shouting into the void, nothing would change. No, This required a different kind of response, a lesson he couldn't ignore. First, I needed to be sure the law was on my side, so I made a call to the county energy office. After explaining my situation, the official on the line confirmed everything I suspected. No one, he said firmly, can legally connect to your private grid without your consent. That's theft of services. Hearing those words was like flipping a switch in my brain. It wasn't just me being paranoid, it was theft. Real, prosecutable theft. That gave me the green light, and once I had the law backing me up, I got creative. Most homeowners never touch the advanced settings on their solar systems. They just let the inverter do its job. Keep voltage stable, safe for appliances, safe for charging. But me? I knew my system inside and out. I'd built it with my own hands. I knew where the safety limits were and how to bend them. I spent the next evening tinkering in my garage. My inverter had a little key, noun setting, one most people would never dare touch. By nudging the voltage upward, I could create a subtle surge, enough to confuse or even fry electronics that weren't properly grounded. Not lethal, not dangerous to me, but very unfriendly to anyone trying to leech without permission. Think of it like an electric fence for my outlet. To cover myself, I installed a hidden camera aimed squarely at the plug. If the HOA cop tried to deny it, I'd have crystal clear footage of him trespassing, plugging in, and getting exactly what he deserved. And then I waited. That night, the trap was live. I killed the porch light, brewed a fresh pot of coffee, and sat in the dark with my phone recording in one hand. Around midnight, I saw the familiar glow of headlights sliding across my blinds. The Tesla rolled up silent, as smug as ever. He got out, cable in hand, and plugged into my outlet like it was his birthright. At first, everything looked normal. The charging light blinked blue, the screen glowed. He leaned back, arms crossed, like a king soaking up tribute. But then the hum began. Low, almost imperceptible, but building fast. I sipped my coffee, heart pounding, eyes glued to the scene. The Tesla's charging port gave a faint spark. The steady blue glow turned red. His smug expression faltered. He bent down to check, and then it hit. A sharp pop, followed by a flash of white light and a crackle loud enough to make me flinch. The car alarm exploded into the night, blaring like a siren. He stumbled back, cursing. "What the?" I couldn't help it. I laughed, loud enough for him to hear. His head snapped toward me, face twisted in fury. "You did this. You rigged it." I stood up, calm as stone. "No," I said, phone raised high. "I protected what's mine. You've been stealing power for weeks. Now you're paying the price." His fists clenched. He looked like he wanted to charge at me. "I'll have you arrested. You can't sabotage an HOA officer." That line nearly broke me. I almost laughed in his face. An HOA officer? He wasn't a cop. He wasn't even security. He was a glorified hall monitor with a badge he bought off eBay. But I didn't need to argue, because what he didn't know was that this was only the beginning. The night exploded into chaos. The Tesla's alarm shrieked, echoing through the neighborhood, lights flashing like a rave in my driveway. Porch lights flicked on up and down the street, curtains parted. My neighbors peered out, curious and irritated. And right there in the middle of it all stood the HOA cop, red-faced, fists balled, screaming about sabotage while his prized electric chariot smoked at the charging port. I stayed calm. That was the key. No shouting, no threats, just calm confidence. I lifted my phone, its little red recording light glowing like a dagger. "First of all," I said evenly, "you're not an officer of anything. Second, you just admitted to stealing utilities on camera." That was when his bravado cracked. For the first time, I saw fear flicker across his face. But instead of backing down, he doubled down. He snatched his phone and barked into it. "Karen, get over here, now." Karen, the queen of smug herself. The HOA president who strutted through the neighborhood like she was mayor, judge, and jury rolled into one. I knew this was about to escalate. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, headlights cut across my yard. Karen's oversized SUV screeched to a halt and she stepped out like she was walking onto a stage. High heels clicking, voice already raised before her door even slammed shut. "This is harassment," she barked, pointing a manicured finger straight at me. "You can't tamper with a member's vehicle. He was conducting official HOA business." I blinked at her. "Official business?" I gestured at the smoking Tesla still connected to my outlet. "He was stealing power from my solar grid." Karen crossed her arms, chin raised high. "The HOA has rights to community resources. That includes your property if deemed necessary." That statement was so absurd I nearly choked. My property, my solar panels, my outlet. Not a dime of HOA money had gone into them, and yet she stood there, dripping arrogance, declaring ownership. By now, more neighbors had gathered outside, drawn by the alarm and the shouting. Some looked annoyed, others intrigued. I saw heads shaking, whispers spreading. For years, they'd grumbled about Karen's heavy-handed rules and her pet HOA cop. Tonight, they were witnessing the insanity firsthand. I let Karen rant for another 30 seconds, spewing nonsense about bylaws and community rights. Then I pulled out my second phone. Funny thing, I said, unlocking the screen. I already called the sheriff's department the minute his car alarm went off. As if on cue, red and blue lights splashed across the cul-de-sac. 2 squad cars pulled up, officers stepping out, hands on their belts. The real law had arrived. Evening, one deputy said, scanning the scene. We got reports of theft of services and trespassing. Who's the homeowner here? I raised my hand, calm, clear. That'd be me. Instantly, the HOA cop jumped forward, voice cracking. He sabotaged my car. Arrest him! Karen chimed in, shrill and desperate. Yes, he tampered with official business. Arrest him at once. But the deputies weren't swayed. I handed them my phone with the recording. They watched silently, the glow of the video reflecting in their eyes. The HOA cop trespassing, plugging in, stealing power, and then my system retaliating. When the clip ended, one deputy nodded. Looks like theft of utilities. And trespassing, since he entered your property without consent. Karen tried to interject, but the second deputy shut her down. Ma'am, HOA rules don't override state law. You're not above property rights. The color drained from her face. The HOA cop muttered something under his breath, but the deputies had already moved in, citing him for theft of services and trespassing. Karen herself got slapped with an obstruction warning for trying to interfere. As the squad cars pulled away, the Tesla sat silent and broken in my driveway. Its battery fried, its proud owner humiliated. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of satisfaction. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The flashing red and blue lights faded into the distance, but the fallout was only beginning. The HOA cop's Tesla sat dead in my driveway until a tow truck hauled it away at dawn. By then, half the neighborhood had seen the whole circus. Whispers spread like wildfire. People who had grumbled quietly for years about Karen and her cop finally had proof that their so-called leaders were nothing but bullies in cheap uniforms. The next morning, I called my lawyer. If the county energy office said it was theft, then I was going to treat it like theft. We calculated every kilowatt drained from my system, every spike in my bills, and the damages caused by his stunt. The number was staggering, thousands of dollars stolen, weeks of my system compromised. When my lawyer filed the civil suit, I asked him to go for the jugular. Court was brutal, for them. The footage didn't just show theft, it showed arrogance. The HOA cop tried to claim he had emergency authorization, but the judge nearly laughed him out of the room. Karen doubled down, insisting HOA bylaws gave them access to community resources, but the judge cut her off with a single question. Did the HOA purchase or maintain this solar grid? When she admitted no, the case was sealed. The ruling came swift and sharp, over $50,000 in damages awarded to me, enough to replace my entire system twit. See over. Enough to make sure the HOA cop's precious Tesla never saw another free charge on my dime. Karen, meanwhile, faced her own reckoning. Her obstruction charge stuck, staining her spotless image of control. Word spread at lightning speed. Neighbors were furious. All the fines, the bogus citations, the intimidation, it all boiled over. At the next HOA meeting, the vote was unanimous. Karen was ousted as president. Within months, she sold her house at a loss and slunk out of the neighborhood without so much as a goodbye. And the HOA? Stripped of its charter after a county investigation. Years of overreach and abuse finally caught up to them. The board dissolved, the HOA cop was banned from ever holding a position in any association again, and our neighborhood, free at last, breathed like it hadn't in years. As for me, my lights stayed on. My panels hummed peacefully again. The driveway, once tainted by theft, became just another quiet part of my home. Sometimes at night, I'd sit on the porch with a fresh cup of coffee, looking out over the panels I'd built, smiling at the silence. Because here's the truth about bullies. Whether they wear a fake vest or hide behind HOA titles, they forget one simple rule. When you mess with a man's home, you mess with his pride, and pride has power all its own. So when that Tesla fried, when the deputies hauled them away, When the court hammered down justice, it wasn't just a win for me. It was a reminder to every neighbor watching. In the end, real power doesn't come from titles or threats. It comes from standing your ground.